So I could go ahead and just try and convince you to watch The Harder They Fall this weekend, or I can let the cast list do the talking. Let me just read a few names here. You got Idris Elba, Jonathan Majors, Regina King, Lakeith Stanfield, Delroy Lindo, Zazie Beetz, you want me to keep going? RJ Kyler. What's going on, everyone? Jeymes here with another real review, and today I'm so excited to finally talk about The Harder They Fall, the brand new Western ensemble film streaming exclusively on Netflix this weekend. But y'all, there's so much to unpack. I'm going to try to fit it all in this review, but man, I just really enjoyed my time with this movie. But there were a couple of things that didn't work as well. Now, before I get into my positives and my negatives, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real Jeymes, where we talk about movies, TV, and all the news in between, so you're not going to want to miss out. Go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell, and hit the thumbs up button if you are a big fan of westerns or just any of the actors that I just read off in the intro. And if you haven't already, go ahead and get loud down below in the comments as well, and let me know, do you love this movie? Is it your favorite Netflix movie of the year, or are you a little indifferent? Because I'm curious to see everyone's perspective on this film. Alrighty, y'all, well, you know what? Let's dive into who's directing, who's starring, and what this movie's about. The Harder They Fall is directed by Jeymes Samuel, who's also known by his stage name The Bullets. He directed Jay-Z's music video for Legacy, an amazing song, and the film is starring Regina King, Jonathan Majors, and Idris Elba, but trust me, there are so many more names that we're going to get to. Now, if you don't know much about The Harder They Fall, the plot is simple on the surface, but gets a little layered as the movie goes on. Jonathan Majors plays Nat Love, a man out for revenge after the death of his family at the hands of Rufus Buck, played by Idris Elba. But after Rufus Buck is somehow freed from prison, well, things start to get a little interesting for the Nat Love gang. Now, that's as spoiler-free as I can give it to you, because there are some twists and turns along the way that, again, I think you're going to want to strap in for. But guys, let's get into exactly why I love this movie, and it really starts with the fact that this is the most stylish Western I've seen in a very long time, and it works. Usually when directors have worked with music videos before in the past, I come to expect a lot of cool cinematography and different unorthodox angles that they incorporate in their movies, and Jeymes Samuel is no stranger to making things look beautiful. And here, yeah, there are a lot of scenes that you don't necessarily always get in Western movies. Things either look overexposed on purpose, there's a lot of light leak, and I just really think that the angles are incredible. But he does pay homage to the old style of shooting Western movies, like, you know, the exaggerated zoom-ins and then the zoom-in again. Like, those moments are really cool, but we get a lot of that and a lot of fresh takes for the genre. And a lot of credit also deserves to go to his cinematographer here, Mihai Malamare Jr., who was the DP on Jojo Rabbit. And if you know me, guys, I love me some Jojo Rabbit. It was emotional, it was great, but it was the way that film was shot that kind of brought it all together. So again, I think The Harder They Fall, when you watch it this weekend, guys, you're gonna really be blown away like I was with the cinematography and just the way the movie looks. And the other thing that I thought worked really well here for the most part was the booming soundtrack. It did take me a little bit of getting used to, though, because there were moments where sound effects from the actual soundtrack were bleeding their way into the actual fighting, the gunfights, and I thought that it sounded a little unnatural, but my ears sort of adjusted over time, and I came to expect that this is going to feel sometimes sort of like a music video montage, but in a good way, because there are moments here that really are aided because of this amazing soundtrack. When you got Jay-Z's original song going, I was hype, y'all, and for me to be hyped with a Western movie, well, it's been a while since I've had that feeling. And honestly, I did really enjoy the story, because even though it's not as layered, there's still enough here when it comes to the actual characters that I really enjoyed. And that's the thing, the movie's really split into two factions. You have the Rufus Buck gang, and then you have the Nat Love gang, and clearly both are outlaws. They're not good people, but the Nat Love gang is propped up as the protagonist group, and Rufus Buck and his gang are the antagonists. Well, actually, after what Rufus Buck does in this movie, yeah, definitely the antagonist. And that leads me to the acting itself, you guys, because we have all the technical aspects working for me, and it came down to this amazing ensemble cast that really sold the project. And it starts with Jonathan Majors himself. You guys know I've been raving about him since The Last Black Man in San Francisco, but here he just continues to prove how versatile he is as an actor. His range is incredible. He goes from a very intense outlaw to an emotional man when he's with his love, I should say, stagecoach Mary, played played by Zazie Beetz, and I do think that both of them have an insane amount of chemistry on screen, and it just speaks to the testament of this movie and how they're able to corral so many actors together, but still give them enough shine to where you feel like each one got an individual moment. And speaking of Zazie Beetz, she really does a good job at kind of making the movie feel grounded. At first, the way she was introduced to me was, man, she's an ex-outlaw, and the film made it feel as such until we get into the second act, and my goodness. Yeah, she can kick some butt, y'all. Her and Regina King, when they go toe-to-toe, it was just incredible to witness. And I do want to show some love to RJ Kyler, who plays Jim Beckworth. He's a silver-tongued, slick man, but he is so good in this role. He is the comic relief for the most part, but the writing for his character in terms of the humor, he was able to take that and run with it. I loved his back and forth, especially with Ed Gatharji. I hope I pronounced that correctly, but Bill Pickett and Jim are just so good together, and I just really love the fact that there's always this mirror character for each member of the Rufus Buck gang and the Nat Love gang. So the mirror character for Jim was Lakeith Stanfield, not by personality, but by a quick draw, shoot 'em up kind of character. But let's go ahead and now talk about the Rufus Buck gang, because I think it being led by Idris Elba was a good choice. However, I don't think, for me, that was the standout here. And it's not a negative per se, but I do think that they maybe could have given Idris a little bit more love. However, I'm okay with the decision to not do that because it paves the way for me for Regina King. Regina King is the leader of the Rufus Buck gang. I don't care what anyone says. She is the one to literally scare the other people in the town. Yes, Idris Elba goes around shooting up people, but it's Regina King that keeps him in line. She plays Trudy Smith, who is the right-hand woman to Rufus Buck, and I thought that Regina King just shows once again that she is one of the all-time greats that is still among us today. My goodness, Regina King. I don't know how she does it, but every time she even spoke a line, it could have just been one word, I was just gravitated, right? I was just drawn in. I was so immersed in this movie because it was due in large part to her acting. And someone who doesn't actually fall into either of those gangs is Delroy Lindo, who plays the sheriff, Bass Reeves. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm so tired of people not giving Delroy Lindo his props on a mainstream level. I do feel like he has been a legend for a very long time, and it just pains me when people kind of overlook him. I'm looking at you, Academy. But I will tell you that Delroy Lindo here is giving a more supporting role, but whenever he is on screen with Jonathan Majors, something about the energy and the aura between them, it just kind of made me smile. Even though I noticed that they were involved in a lot of not so ideal situations, I still smiled. And y'all don't worry, I'm not forgetting about Dion Cole, who plays Wiley Esco. Give the man his props. I feel like no one has been speaking about Dion Cole here, and I'm ready to give the man his flowers because he puts on a performance that is so detached from what he is usually finding himself in. Comedic roles, for example, Blackish. I'll tell you, I love him in Blackish. He's hilarious. He's arguably one of my favorite characters in that show. But I will tell you that Dion Cole here as Wiley Esco is so rough in a good way. He has this gruff to his voice, but he is just putting on a different performance where if you didn't know it was Dion Cole, you might not even know who it was portraying this character. I love that Dion Cole disappears into the role and gives one of the most solid performances of the movie. And I say all of that to say this, you guys, the ensemble cast here is even better than it looked on paper, because when the movie first got announced, I was sold because of the cast, but it's the way that they're brought in on this film that just blew me away. So yeah, this is an A+ cast. And before we get into some of my negatives with the movie, you guys, I do want to say one more thing. It almost feels like even though this movie is trying to be a different Western, it still sort of gives off that vintage vibe. There's a lot of film grain swimming on screen that I don't know if it is maybe something they put into post-production, but I loved seeing that because it made me feel like I was watching a classic Western. And then you have the costume design and the set design. There's maybe only one moment where I thought, okay, it doesn't feel like we're in a town, it feels like we're on a soundstage, but I'll tell you that didn't happen very often. There's even this one awesome creative decision where they go into a town that is, well, predominantly white, and I'm not gonna lie, everything is white. Literally, all of the town is white, and there's even something in parentheses because there's like really awesome text and captions on screen, and it says it's a white town, and I was like, listen, this is excellent. It's self-aware, but it's also just great at delivering those little bits of social commentary, and I loved it. I actually want to go back and watch it again because I'm sure there are little things that I might have missed. So you have great direction, writing, it looks amazing from the action to the very intimate moments, but what doesn't work too well with The Harder They Fall? And I think it starts with maybe one performance and a couple of decisions along the way. I don't necessarily like Lakeith Stanfield's performance here. Do I think he's a great actor? Abso-freaking-lutely. The man is amazing at what he does in so many films and TV shows, but I don't necessarily think he worked for me as Cherokee Bill here. He's very serious. Yes, I get that's his character, but it's almost like he was saying his lines through his teeth. It didn't feel like he ever really fit with everybody else, and I don't know. If that is supposed to be his character, let me know in the comments. It just never really worked for me. I almost feel like every time he was on screen, I'm thinking, alright, there's a little bit of a drop-off here in terms of the amazing performances that we were getting in this film. So even though I love Lakeith Stanfield and pretty much everything I've seen him in, this is one of his weaker performances, but for the most part, it does fall kind of in the middle, if that makes sense. So I didn't really think he put on the greatest performance, and it did kind of bring down the film in some key moments. And for as much as I love this style, I do think that the other thing the film doesn't do too well is maybe sometimes hitting you over the head with this over stylization. Guys, there's a lot when it comes to the aesthetic here. I mean, if you even study one frame, you'll be studying it for an hour, but there are moments where I do think it gets over stylized, and there are some added visual effects to this movie that don't look practical at all, and unfortunately make the film feel a little bit less than authentic in times. There's one scene in particular where a very important character steps out of something, I don't want to spoil anything, and then the screen in the back sort of pulsates inward and outward, but guys, it looked very weird to the point where I paused the film, I rewound it, and I was wondering if maybe it was my Netflix account that maybe had a hiccup in the streaming, but no, it looked exactly as I thought it did the first time. So there are just moments here where I think the direction kind of gets in the way of what is happening on screen. But y'all, those are the only things that didn't work too well for me in this movie, because overall, I love The Harder They Fall. This film breathes fresh life into the genre because for me, westerns have been a little dry. This is an outdated genre. There's some things that just don't age well, and I'll be honest, I'm not digging a lot of Clint Eastwood's western movies as of late, but for me, what they were able to deliver with The Harder They Fall is arguably the best western in many, many years. It's energetic, entertaining, and incredibly enticing. I was immersed in every performance, and there are so many story beats here that I could really get behind. And then I looked at my watch and I thought, what? That was almost 2.5 hours? No way. And I looked at the runtime, and yeah, guys, this is a movie that, yeah, it's a western, so take your time with it, but my goodness, the pacing was excellent and I never felt like it missed a beat. And for a lot of film geeks, there are going to be shots here that'll blow your mind. I think there's so much beautiful aesthetic, the cinematography is just excellent, and yeah, it has a banging soundtrack that I'm probably going to have to go listen to this weekend. I'm serious, guys. I'm adding it to my Apple Music. So guys, again, there you have it. That's my real review of The Harder They Fall, a movie that the western genre desperately needed, but honestly, it's probably my favorite Netflix movie so far this year. So I do recommend that you watch it this weekend, and when you do, go ahead and get down below in the comments and let me know what you thought of The Harder They Fall. And if you haven't already, hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, because guys, we're seeing Encanto, we're seeing Belfast, and we got reviews for King Richard and so much more. I don't know why I just counted all those words. Alrighty y'all, again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.